Hi, I'm Brian Dunn, and welcome to the most important podcast ever. What makes it so important? It's not about me, it's about you. This podcast is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, the moments of resilience, the lessons learned, and the small acts that made a big difference. From retail floors to boardrooms, and today to ballparks, baby, we'll share the untold stories that shape lives and careers. This week, our guest is a friend, Robby Incmikoski. Robby is one of the all-time great guys, legendary sports announcer in my view, and he's had the most compelling career, and he has put together the most amazing book. Growing up, I was a freak about baseball. I was born into it. I lived in New York. My grandfather was a Mets fan, and he would take me to Shea. He'd sneak me past my dad and take me to Shea because my dad was a diehard Yankee fan, and my dad would take me to Yankee Stadium. So I had the best of both worlds. Anyway, Robby's book, which I've read cover to cover, has taken me back through all those memories. And I think that's one of the really cool things about baseball. This book is a must-have if you're a baseball fan, if you're a father, if you're a son, if you're a human being, you need this book. And with that, I want to say hi. Hey, Robby, how are you?
Brian, I don't know that I've had a better intro ever in my entire time since I've done the book Sacred Grounds, and I can't thank you enough, and it's just so amazing to be a guest on your show. Never in the time, man, I first met you was around 2009, about 17 years ago. Your kids, or at least your oldest son, was playing high school basketball. Maybe it was your middle son, Will, who was playing high school basketball. And let me tell you this, the great thing about this, and I'm sure we'll dive into this, Brian, but the best thing about this project has been what it has done in terms of reconnecting me with so many different people. So it's really cool, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. So let's jump in, man, because I got a lot I want to ask you about. When you hear the phrase sacred grounds, what does it mean to you?
You know, well, there's a few ways to answer that question. And the great thing about not being affiliated with a team anymore and not having to worry about Big Brother looking at me is I can just be honest now. So it reminds me of a couple things. Number one, it reminds me of a lot of pride, which is the name of my book and the project that I took on. But if you were to ask me if we were just hanging out at a baseball game, having a beer and a hot dog and eating some peanuts, it would remind me of a night out on the south side of Pittsburgh at a place called Mario's, which is a legendary bar. And one of my best friends on planet Earth is a guy named Paul Hogan. And only a guy like Paul Hogan could give my book its name in the way he did. And it happened, I don't have the exact time, but it was after 1 a.m., probably closer to 1:30. It was a random Tuesday night, September 3rd, 2024, to be specific, because I'll never forget that date the rest of my life. And we were sitting there having drinks, and having more drinks. And Paul and I were, a little buzzed. And he turned around to me and said, "Hey, I have the name of your book." I said, "Nah, dude, we got to wait a little bit. We have to wait. Like, let's do this tomorrow. We can revisit it. We're a little banged up right now. Let's not do it." He grabbed a napkin and he drew this. Now, can you spare literally 5 seconds? I'm going to go grab that napkin.
Do it
right now. So he grabs this napkin, and I don't know how well you can see this, Brian, because it's encased in glass right now, but that's what he drew. Sacred Grounds by Robby Incmikoski, featuring Paul Hogan. Now that reflection is just because of the glass, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's how the book got its name. And we did a page
and the
on
cover.
That and how it happened.
And the cover.
Yeah. The cover was designed. Yeah, well, that's exactly how we did it. was based off of his drawing when he was blowing about a .25 at that point in time after drinking so many drinks and having so many shots. But I swear, Brian, the best moments we have on TV, radio, podcasting, anything are those that are authentic. And that's the God's honest truth of how that happened. So it reminds me of a night at Mario's. And Paul Hogan is a wonderful guy who's going to co-host my podcast. It's about the launch before opening day 2026. He's a retired firefighter, and he spends his days now taking his daughters to and from college. But he also works in organ recovery. So he will
Wow.
grab organs or cadavers and take them to save lives. And it's a job that gives him purpose. And he spends probably 12, 13 hours a day on the road saving lives by driving organs to people who need them. So
Wow.
it's a cool honor to be a part of this and have him be a small part of this ride as well. Not small; it's a major part because he named my book. But that's how it came to be.
I don't know him, but I like him already. Baseball guy, firefighter, saving lives, collecting organs. I'm in. Um, so let me just back up a little bit. So you grew up in South Philly, right? And I
I did.
and I worked in Philly for a while, and it can be a tough town for sure. What did growing up in South Philly teach you about sports and sort of belonging?
Well, I mean, that's all we did. So if you were in the sports, these days, parents in general have to worry about a lot of stuff that happens online. That was
Yep.
never the case with us. For us, and when I say worry about online, obviously, people, the obvious stuff, but also how much time kids spend online and how little kids go out and play. We were playing sports every single day. The biggest thing I had to worry about was making sure I could hear my mom yell at me when it was time to come home, yell my name when it was time to come in for playing sports. And that really toughened us up because you play with your buddies, you fought with everybody, but you loved each other. And these guys that I grew up with are still the best of friends of mine to this day. And Philly is a real blue collar town, which reminds me a lot of Pittsburgh, where I make my home right now. Uh, but it's a lot of hard work, a lot of people who are very, very tough. And what I mean by tough is that they don't fold when pressure happens. They've dealt with adversity and they know how to deal with it. And obviously, times change and people change and, the world evolves. But growing up in South Philly, everybody had to hustle for what they had. And that's the attitude I've kind of carried throughout my entire career is you take nothing for granted, you work your ass off, and you do the best you can day in and day out and give it an honest effort. And hopefully the results will show accordingly.
I think you personify that too, Robbie. I really do. You were also a ball boy for the Eagles.
I was.
What was that like? How cool.
So, I don't know. I don't know how much you want to delve into this, but it's a crazy story. There was a kid I grew up with named Vinny Moffo. Great South Philly name, right?
I was
he
gonna,
lived he lived around the corner from me, and we used to walk around and collect aluminum cans off the street and off the ground because there was a can bank down on Second Street. I grew up between 10th and 11th, so we would collect these aluminum cans in either a grocery cart or just bags, and we would take them in and get money, and that's how I bought snacks. So one day I found myself by the Eagles, by Veterans Stadium, which used to be the home of the Eagles, and they had a practice field on the other side of the parking lot, which was basically in South Philly. And that sounds kind of crazy, but the parking lot was like here. Then you drove like half a mile, and that's where the practice field was. So you couldn't really walk it, unless you had about 10 minutes to spare. Um, and I were practicing, and there was a little hole in the gate. I'll never forget it, next to an old restaurant called Medora's Mecca. And I snuck in that gate because I wanted to watch the Eagles practice. And the old assistant equipment manager is a guy named Danny Murray. And I snuck in, and like Reggie White was there, Randall Cunningham was there, um, Todd Bell, Roy Nell Young. I mean, all these, people I grew up idolizing, watching Eagles games. And I just went up and just started talking to everybody. And I wouldn't leave him alone. And he made me carry some blocking dummies or asked me to carry some or I guess he told me if you carry some blocking dummies into the equipment truck, which was the trailer of an 18 wheeler, he would give me a football. Well, that was the worst thing he could have done because he never got rid of me after that. I carried the blocking dummies in, I got a football, I took it home, and that's where it all began. And I ended up becoming a ball boy for the Eagles and working in the training room after I got fired because I had a mouth on me that I ran too much.
No.
It's crazy. It's a crazy story,
Did
man. I'm telling you.
did did you learn a lot watching how hard those athletes worked?
Well, as an adult is when I really got to appreciate that, and when my time in baseball, because when you spend time, yes, I did, and that's where I learned work ethic. Like, I'm sure. Look, you have a son that's an assistant coach in the NBA with the Houston Rockets, right? So he knows what it takes day in and day out. He learned that from you. He learned that from Sue, his mom. He learned that from his brothers. He learned that from other people. I'm sure he's been around in his life. And for me, it was my mentors, the two trainers who worked there, Otho Davis and David Price. Both are looking down on us from heaven. And I'm so thankful for what they've instilled in me. But I learned what it was like to get in early and leave late, what it was like to not be lazy, what it was like to go the extra mile. And then you see what that takes from to be an athletic trainer in sports. Now, that was not a path I wanted to go down, but when I became a reporter in Major League Baseball, you see the work ethic that these guys put in and day out just to stay in the big leagues. I mean, there's not a lot of Garrett Coles or Byron Buxtons or, Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens with just a natural talent to be
Right,
great. You know,
right.
there's so many guys that fight to make it to the big leagues, and so many guys that fight harder just to keep a roster spot and get service time and perhaps set their family up, or make a little bit of money in their career. So that is really when I learned work ethic. Started in South Philly and ended in major league clubhouses.
For those professional athletes, the games, what we see on TV, what the fans see, is about 5% of it, right? I mean, it's like an iceberg, it's just the tip. So much happens. I remember you mentioned William when he was coaching in the G League for the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. After the game, I said to him, "Man, all those guys are so good." And he said, "Yeah, and Dad, none of them are going to be in the show." I mean, it's the funnel gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and and you've always been the star until you get to each level, and then you got to settle in and get your ego to relax so that you can be a role player, right?
There are there are so many guys that I have seen with tremendous amounts of talent, and they just for some reason or another couldn't figure it out at the big league level. I've seen pitchers who are big, strong, could throw hard, but they just didn't work hard enough. They enjoyed the lifestyle that came with being a big league ball player more than they enjoyed being a big league ball player.
Right.
And that sometimes is a difference between having a long career and not having a long career.
Yeah, that's you can take that metaphor right out to life. You really can.
Brian, it's applicable in anything you do. You think about baseball. If you get a hit 3 times out of 10, you're a Hall of Famer for for your entire
That's
career.
right.
Think
That's
about
right.
that. What other facet of life can you be? Can you be? Can you have success 3 times out of 10, and you're among the greatest to ever do it? That's how
Yeah.
hard baseball is. So when you look at
Yeah.
those habits, you kind of get it by osmosis. You see it every day. You live it. You see what time they get there. You see the BP. You see the extra grounders. You
Yeah.
see everything that they do. And it's like, all right, some of these guys earn their check. I know it's a very
Oh,
large check, but they
yeah.
earn it.
Oh man. And imagine standing there with a 33-ounce piece of wood and a 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming at you. I mean, it's
I watch BP fastballs, and they're intimidating. I
right,
couldn't imagine
right,
what it's like facing Paul Skeens or
yeah,
facing Aroldis Chapman throwing
right,
104, 105. I mean, I don't know.
right,
I would just stick my bat out there and pray that it hit it.
exactly. Before because I want to talk to you about some ballparks and some things and players. Um, one of the things I think that's really interesting about this book, Sacred Grounds, besides being a great read, you've explained to me that it's a multimedia experience too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So it's so this, it's crazy when we set out to do this project, Brian. It was I thought I have all these pictures from all 30 ballparks. It started in opening day 2017. The Pirates were at Fenway Park in Boston. And I thought, let's take all this and get stories from each place. And let's just see what anecdotes we can get, but let's make it the story behind the story, because that was my specialty for 16 years as a Major League Baseball announcer on television. And I thought, we have so much stuff that we have to have a website that links from the book. So that's what we did. We put a couple QR codes throughout the book, and there are pages. Eventually, I think we have 12 ballparks up right now, but we are going to have pages for every ballpark. So say, Brian, I'll ask you, how many ballparks have you been to in your life? Have you seen many throughout your career, in your travels?
I don't know, 30, 40, including
Okay.
old and new. Yeah.
Right. Right. So when you look at all 30 currently, I mean, as much as you love the game, you probably would enjoy visiting each ballpark, right? You get a chance to see it in the experience.
Absolutely.
So what I did
Absolutely.
on that was I gave kind of a little bit of a preview of what to expect. Here's what you should do when you go there. And then if people can tour the ballpark, they can see a bunch more pictures from each place on there, but also have an idea of what to expect when they get there. And the best part about this was the interviews that we did. We went so deep with these guys, but in a photo book, you can only get so much. You can only get 200, 300, maybe 400 or 500 words is about our
Right.
maximum, maybe 650, 700 for a couple stories, but that's it. So we said, you know what? We have so many different stories that can be read. So we put all the interview transcripts with each guest on the site as well. So if somebody finds a subject interesting that they read about, they can read our whole conversation online.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, is that up and running now, Robby? I
It
haven't
is.
been there yet.
Robby ROBBYINC.com is where that is.
We're going to link that for you at the bottom of this, wherever we post this episode. I think that's really a great idea. Maybe I'm an old guy. I don't think it replaces the book, but I think it's great to go deeper with. And when I said I've been to 30 or 40 stadiums, that includes old Yankee Stadium, new Yankee Stadium. And we're gonna talk about some ballparks. Um, you and I share this in common, I know. Ballparks mean more than just baseball.
Oh my God, yeah.
When did you first realize that?
Veterans Stadium when I was a kid. I specifically remember a few things. I remember my father took me to a game with his coworkers. We sat in the upper deck down the first base line, essentially right, equivalent to we were looking at first base down from the right field line. I don't know if I said left field line, but say right field line. And a player named Ricky Jordan was making his major league debut. And he walked in his first at bat, and then he hit a homer in his next at bat. So he officially homered in his first at bat as a big leaguer. And I remember my dad's friends saying, "Oh my goodness, that was his first at bat, and he hit a home run because he walked the first time." And we thought that was so cool. It was amazing.
Only because it is cool.
Right.
Right.
Well, I was there. And man, it's in my book, and I'm so embarrassed. I want to say 88, summer of 88, I believe it was when that happened. So I was 12, about to turn 13. And I never forgot that. And the winning pitcher that day was Kent Colvey. And he and I ended up sharing a cubicle years later as
Submariner, right?
That is him, indeed.
Yep.
And that is when it first stood out to me, because I carried it with me. And then I remember the 93 Phillies winning the NL pennant over the Atlanta Braves, and Danny Jackson taking off his shirt and flexing on the mound during the celebration. And I remember the Vet being a dump, but it was a lovable dump. The Oakland Coliseum reminds me of the Vet. It was crappy. It was decrepit. It was outdated. The seats were uncomfortable, but I loved everything about it. So everybody has a story to tell that went to the Vet or that grew up in Philly going to Eagles or Phillies games because they shared that stadium, like the Raiders and the A's did back in the day. And you look at that now and you see so many people, Brian, that are there with mom, with dad, brother, sister, son, daughter, aunt, uncle, friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, you name it. Some people know nothing, couldn't name one player, but they love it. They love the architecture. They love the scoreboard. They love the between innings entertainment. They love the beer. They love the food. They love the cotton candy, the popcorn, all that stuff that comes with it. people may not follow the game of baseball. They may not particularly love the game of baseball, and that's okay. It's a $10 billion year business, $11 billion business, whatever it is now. It's a big business. So it's not like they're hurting for fans. But somebody has a memory. Almost everybody has a memory of being at a baseball game, no matter how much or little they love the sport. So at the Vet is where it started for me. And I really was able to take those memories into my career for 16 years. And I remember that stuff. And like, I remember the last year of the Metrodome like it was yesterday, because it was my first job working a Major League Baseball game every day. And I
How
thought it was the
cool.
coolest thing.
Oh, because it is. I mean, that's fantastic. I still remember being 5 years old, my grandfather taking me to Shea Stadium, sitting in the outfield and seeing the lush green grass and the smell. And I still get that feeling every time I walk into a stadium, and I just love it. Just love it.
There's nothing like it. It's the only sport, Brian, when you look at the dimensions, right? You look at an NBA court, the dimensions are the same no matter where they play. NHL, 200 by 85. NFL, 100 field plus 2 10-yard end zones on each side. Baseball is the only sport where it's unique, where the dimensions are different, the field's different, the outfield wall is different. No outfield wall is identical in Major League Baseball. Yeah, home to first, home to third, the base, they're all the same, but that's it. That's where the similarities end. And that's what connects a team with its city, the identity, all that. And it's just, I'll never get tired of walking into a Major League Baseball stadium ever.
Are there, do you still, so you still get excited after all these years being a professional in the business?
Every time. Even when the bus pulls up, or when we fly into San Francisco airport, okay, we'd be sitting on the bus and you go over the Bay Bridge and you can see Oracle Park as you're going in, even when it's dark. Or when you get to San Diego, you can see Petco Park right there in the Gaslamp district, or Gaslamp quarter. You can. I always have been just fascinated with stadiums from the time I was a kid. They're amazing. They're amazing pieces of architecture.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere you go, and none of them are bad. None of them are bad. I know some of them aren't great. I get that, but every ballpark has a story, and I'm just fascinated by them every time I see it and every time I step into one right now at 50 years old.
That's awesome. That's just awesome. And I'm a few years ahead of you, and I wasn't in the business, but I still just love walking into a ballpark. I really do. Do you have favorite stadiums, or do you not let yourself think that way?
No. Yes, I do.
And are they tied to stories, or are they just more ambience?
Now, that is a great way to phrase what's your favorite stadium, because I haven't been asked that throughout this entire tour. And that's pretty cool to ask it that way. I think it's a combination of both. And I'll use one example, Dodger Stadium. I don't know. Have you ever been to Dodger Stadium?
I have.
Okay. So you probably experienced something similar to what I have. And that is, it's a disaster getting in and out. Let's just be honest.
Oh, it is.
It is. Visiting teams need an escort, police escort, just to get out of the parking lot. Once you get to the highway, the cops peel off. They just get you out of the parking lot, and it still takes like 10, 15 minutes with a police escort.
Right.
But you get there, and it's like, my goodness, you see the hills. You see the beauty of Dodger Stadium. They have the top of the park on the, I think it's the 9th floor, where I don't know what the seating level is, but you look there and the pictures are just, oh my, you're like, holy smokes, this is unbelievable. So that's part of it. So Dodger Stadium is beautiful, but a horrible place for a reporter. It's inconvenient. The elevators take forever. The camera well is uncomfortable. It's terrible, but there are memories attached to it. I once got hit with a foul ball right in the chest. Howie Kendrick on a pitch from Tony Watson, check swing, bang, right in the chest. Ended up in the X-ray room with Justin Turner after the game. It's different places for different reasons. You go to Baltimore, you think of Camden Yards, which is my favorite visiting park. Besides Brian, there's an asterisk there. Target Field and PNC Park, the two places I called home, ballparks where I've made my living. But you look at Utah Street, you look at Boog's Barbecue, you look at the brass plaques where all the home run balls land out there, the team stores out there. The ushers are wearing like the bright orange shirts. I mean, there's ambiance. There's something
Yeah.
to it. The retired numbers are right out there as you make your way in beyond the Birdland clock that you see. Um, it's there's a different place for every reason, and we could do this for hours, but we're going to bore everybody. So maybe we do this
But
drinking a beer one day, watching baseball,
at
and
Mario's, at Mario's.
you know, come on, man. I named my book there. I got carte blanche every time we go, brother.
Good. I For me, it is so much about experience. Uh, I had the great opportunity to go into Fenway Park, enemy territory when you grow up a Yankee fan.
Oh yeah.
Although I lived in New York in the only era where the Yankees absolutely sucked. It was before Steinbrenner bought them. Never sniffed a playoff game when I was there.
That would
Never
have been probably what late
late.
60s, early 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Bobby Mercer, Roy White Yankees.
Bobby Mercer had a decent career too.
He was a good ball player, man. But then I lived in Boston for a few years with Susie and the boys and got friendly with the Red Sox folks and enjoyed going there. I did a batting practice on top of the Green Monster with my good friend Bill. We were there for a World Series game, and Richard Gere and his son were shagging balls up there with us, and we were just talking ball. It was great.
Isn't that
Just
amazing?
it is just amazing. It's such a common denominator, and everybody gets that feeling. Do you have favorite players, or do you not allow yourself to do that as a pro?
I do, but it's I try to make it as organic as I can, and it's based off
Mhm.
the relationship that I'll have with somebody. Certain guys, it's a professional relationship. Some guys you barely get to know at all. But when you're a reporter following a team every day, you're on every plane ride, bus ride, hotel stay, clubhouse pregame, clubhouse postgame. I'm next to the dugout. I mean, I spend way more time with these guys on the team than I did with my family or anybody else for 6.5, 7 months a year when you count spring training. You hope you
Yeah,
go into October, obviously, if you're lucky enough, and your
right.
team's good enough. But um, there are some guys that I spend time with. Most of the guys that I kind of are drawn to are the equipment guys.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just regular dudes that laugh. They want to go out after the game, have a sandwich, have a drink, play some pool, throw some darts.
Right.
Because in baseball you're a night owl. We go to bed. I still this
Oh
day
my
I go to
gosh,
bed
yeah.
2:30 a.m. every night of my life. So, day games are a little bit of a challenge from time to time because it's hard to wind down after a game, especially if it's, an exciting game and adrenaline's pumping, the place is sold out. You're into it, man. You're into it. Um, so yeah, I mean, the relationships you create and the bond that you form is very similar with people simply because you went through the grind together, and especially my
Yeah,
colleagues in television in baseball because they don't see their families,
yeah.
for a lot of times. Figure 81 days a year minimum you're on the road, plus a few
Oh
days
yeah.
off, plus so you really get to know these people and you spend a lot of time together.
Yeah. It's a grind. It's a long season. It's a
It-
long, long season. Um, so I got a couple of rapid fire ones I want to toss at
Do it.
you.
Let's do it.
What do you think about rituals like the national anthem or the seventh inning stretch or Sweet Caroline? What do you think about that stuff?
Actually, can I cherry pick one thing that you said, the seventh inning stretch? Do you remember? Do you know the story? Now, this hasn't been officially confirmed, but this is how the story goes. You know how the seventh inning stretch came about, Brian? I'm not
No.
trying to trick you. So it's a small blurb under a photo caption, but President William Howard Taft in 1810 went to a game in D.C., and he was a pretty large man. And in the middle of the seventh inning, he got up, and everybody thought he was leaving. So everybody else stood up out of respect. And then he sat back down. And that's kind of where the whole thing began. He said,
Wow.
I just want to stretch my arms, stretch my legs. And that's supposedly where the seventh inning stretch began. So That is amazing. And the other thing too, Brian, when you talk about the seventh inning stretch is how many people are just stand there like arm in arm like this, take
Oh
me out to the
yeah.
ball, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's really cool. The national anthem is cool, especially on opening day. You see a big
Oh,
flag unfurled. You see the teams lined up, staff, players, coaches, trainers, equipment guys, clubhouse assistants, everybody. They're lined up along the baselines. Um, it's amazing stuff, and it goes with what baseball is. I mean, where else do you have people singing a song at every game at the same time?
yep.
Middle of the seventh inning, even though it's untimed,
Yep.
but where else doesn't happen in any other sport, does it? Not in
No.
football, not in basketball, and not in hockey.
Yep. And where else do you have uh, that moment on opening day when they're singing the national anthem and you have bus drivers and cabbies and brain surgeons and rocket scientists all standing next to each other and singing the national anthem?
It is the great unifier that in sports. That's why I really I miss when sports, and that's a whole separate discussion. We're not going to
Yeah.
get into that, but sports is the one getaway, right? Like where when you're high fiving somebody when your team hits a homer or a walk off single or a big strikeout, nobody's looking at the other person going, is that a man or a woman? Black, white, Asian, Republican, Democrat, anything.
Yeah. Doesn't
We're
matter.
just here to cheer on our team. That's it.
Yeah.
Same thing in a
Yeah.
football game. That's what makes sports great. But when you look at baseball, man, there's just something about it. There's just something extra about baseball that makes it special. And to see people celebrating together in unison when the crack of the bat happens, and sometimes it's a routine fly ball, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's a smash that goes 475 feet.
Goes yard, baby. It goes yard. Yep. I love it.
There's nothing like that roar of a
Yeah.
swing and the
Oh,
crowd just going crazy. There's nothing else like it.
for sure. You know what I think is interesting too? When I think back on different games I've been to, and I've been to some great games, been very fortunate. But I always seem to remember more who I was with than the game itself, which I think is kind of cool.
That is why we did this, because the game connects generations. The games connect people in ways that are unimaginable. If someone, I remember one time I worked an opening day, and it was a lady who had lost her father over the winter, and it was her first opening day without her father with her, and that stuck out. And I remember doing a story about it on television. And he was a big Pirates fan, season ticket holder, and he loved the Pirates. This man loved the Pirates with everything in him. Grew up in Pittsburgh, was just a big fan. And a friend of mine, if you look at the Yankees chapter, a friend of mine named Ariel Epstein found her love of baseball from her grandfather, who took her to meet Joe DiMaggio when she was 3 years old. And the photo, she gave me the photo of her grandfather, her, and Joe DiMaggio at a baseball card signing. And Joe touched her shoulder, and her grandfather said to her, "You are meant to be in baseball." And now she makes her living known as the prop queen, right? Sports gambling analyst, right? And her grandfather went to 20 consecutive opening days together. Yankees. She's from New York, loved the Yankees like you, right? And 2024, they went to opening day, and her grandfather, Martin Cohen, passed away during the season. And after he passed away, as I was writing this book, I called her and I said, would you like to pay tribute to your grandfather? And it's the one real tearjerker of a story that we have, but it's kind of heartwarming, because when you look at this girl who was 3 years old, a beautiful young lady, and she loves baseball and loves the Yankees more than most people I've ever met in my entire life. And it's because of her relationship with her grandfather, and it was who she was with every opening day. As she says, everybody wanted princess dresses. I wanted a Derek Jeter jersey.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I remember reading that story in your book, and if I remember correctly, her grandfather chose taking his 9-year-old granddaughter rather than his son. I mean, so awesome.
That's
So
exactly
cool.
right. And that's the bond. And and for me, my grandmother passed away in December of 2019. She was almost 100 years old. So we're obviously thankful for how long we had her, right?
Sure.
And in 2003 was the final opening day at Veterans Stadium. And my grandma and I went to that. Jim Thome hit a triple that day against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Go figure. What a crazy life. Two
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
that played in that game ended up being in my book, Sacred Grounds. I ended up
Yeah.
working with Jim Thome when he was a Minnesota Twin in 2010, 2011.
I love Jim Thome. Jim
He's
Thome's he's one of the good guys, man.
classic, first class gentleman, top to bottom. Hall of Fame
Yep.
ball player, Hall of Fame human being. And
Yep.
it was I don't know, man. Like you think about that's crazy, because I'm talking to you and it's just two guys talking, and you think, just in an organic conversation, all these memories start coming back, Brian,
Oh
because
yeah. Oh yeah.
when you deep in the conversation, you come to realize what the game of baseball does to us as human beings, what it does to us
Yeah.
as, you know, uncles, brothers, fathers, nieces, nephews, mothers, daughter, just everything. It's a beautiful game, Brian. I don't know what else to really say.
No, it really is, and it's so much more than a game. I that essay about her grandfather made me think about mine and what a gift he gave me. He died in 1967, and all these years later, I'm looking at my friend Robby's book, and I'm thinking about my granddad, and I'm just so grateful. I looked up at heaven and said, "Thank you so much for the gift."
It's wi-
For
it's
the
it's
gift.
wild, man, and it sticks with you forever. It really does, truly does.
All right, I got a couple more I got to get in.
Let's do it.
How do you feel when an old stadium disappears? Are
Depends
you a
on the
like, okay, so can I take a shot? I wouldn't cry if the Coliseum was gone.
I respectfully disagree, but
Okay,
I
good,
also
good.
agree. It was the most uncomfortable place for a field reporter to sit,
Right.
possibly in the history of baseball. I have a picture of it that I will get to you, and hopefully you can roll it in here if possible. But otherwise, it was this folding chair that I'm not sure a human being would pay more than, I don't know, 50 American cents for, right? So I would grab towels out of the dugout and sit on those so my ass wasn't sore by the fifth or sixth inning, right? And it was always so cold when you were there in Oakland and San Francisco at night games. It was just always cold, just how it was.
Oh
And
yeah.
the Bay Area can get really cold 12 months a year. People don't realize how cold it gets at
Oh,
nighttime
for
in the Bay,
sure.
especially San Francisco. Man, I needed hand warmers. I had to need a short sleeve shirt for day games and hand warmers for night games. Um,
And
but the
that's not just because
Coliseum,
you're a softie, Robbie, right? It's
no,
not
well,
just
that's
because
part
you're
of no, that's part of it too. Right. I spent
okay.
4 winters in Minnesota, brother, and it still didn't
Yeah.
toughen me up. If that doesn't do it, nothing will. So, so, but let me tell you something about the Coliseum. They had this terrible elevator that went from press dining, which is on the lower level, all the way up to the broadcast booth, right? It was slow. It was small. It sucked. It sucked. Those broadcast booths, they sucked. Everything about it sucked. The camera well sucked. The dugout sucked. The bat rack, everything was terrible about that place. But the fans that were there loved it. They loved it. The right field people sat in 149. Will McNeil was the guy. I'll never forget him. I got to know him a little bit when I was with the Twins and we would go there. I went out there banging the drums, doing, the hooting and hollering, all the dancing and everything that they do. They love the A's. And there was something special about baseball in Oakland. It was a concrete jungle that was just one circle with Mount Davis. Obviously that was added, in the later years, not later, but I guess, it was added at some point in time, but it had character. And if you look in the A's chapter, which is the last team before the Hall of Fame, in the last story, you see a tunnel. And in that tunnel, you can only fit 2 people walking side by side in that tunnel from the visiting clubhouse to the field. And that was a long walk. You had to go down 2 flights of stairs, walk up a tunnel. But the players shared that tunnel with the fans that had the expensive seats. So there was a fan walking to and from their seat, and there was a player getting dressed on the other side of that wall. They were standing literally 7, 8 feet away at their stall, getting ready to play a Major League Baseball game.
Wow.
and it was just separated by this little, what am I saying? They stand up, the things pull out the retractable,
Stanchions.
stanchions. Sorry,
Stanchions.
get a word. So you had
Yep.
these stanchions with these things. You could cut it with a pair of scissors. That's how skinny it was. So you imagine Aaron Judge walking, or Shohei Ohtani walking
Right.
with some fan there, trash talking him potentially, or asking for an autograph, or asking for a photo, or some middle reliever that was running up and down, or some guy that's pinch hitting, running up and down. It was the craziest thing, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved everything about it. It was a dump. I agree with you. It was terrible, but man, that place was great for baseball.
Well, now I feel like an idiot. So I'm really glad I tossed shade on Oakland. I'm losing West Coast subscribers like crazy. I love Oakland. Please hit subscribe. By the way, those two guys you mentioned, Judge and Ohtani, are they Cooperstown bound or what? Oh my God. It's insane. They could go in
honestly,
now. Yeah.
Like Shohei Ohtani, they won't do it, but you could see them like they did for Wayne Gretzky in NHL. They just waived a waiting period for that guy. Mike Trout would go in. Mike Trout, after his first probably 7-8 years in the big leagues, would be in the Hall of Fame. He struggled. Aaron Judge, that's just you know what it reminds me of? It's like the voting with Ken Griffey Jr. Revoke the vote of the people who didn't vote for them. Ichiro, whoever didn't vote for these people, take their vote. Great.
How do they have a vote? How do they have a vote if they're not voting for those guys?
It's just crazy.
It is. So I have good news and bad news. The bad news is our time in this episode has rapidly. My producers are telling me we're well over, and I don't care as much as I should. But the good news is Robby has agreed to do a part 2 where we're going to talk about the career of Major League Baseball. Robby's had a fascinating career in professional sports, and we're going to record that shortly. But to close out this episode, I want to thank Robby, and I want to encourage all of you, get this book and then visit the website, which we will link. This book brought back so many memories for me that it warmed my heart, and it will warm yours too. I guarantee it. And maybe if you ask nicely, Robby will autograph it for you.
I'd be happy. Be my honor. I try to sign every book I send out.
Yeah. And I'm going to be putting an order for 2. One, my friend Bill, I mentioned that I'm going to need you to inscribe. Robby, thank you so much. And please pick up his book. And I want to thank my friend Robby again. And I want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in for what I hope will be a wonderful, nostalgic episode for you. I want to thank the crew at Streetside Studio 7. I want to thank our hosts at Deja Blue House of Coffee. And watch us on our YouTube channel, and please subscribe. It's free and it helps me out. And you can get us anywhere you get your podcasts. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Brian.
You bet, Robby.